quite cinematic countdown music, isn't it?
Yeah, I like it. You always think something really big is going to happen afterwards, and then it's just us being like, hey. We could do like I've been watching I've got into do you remember the show Tim and Eric?
Yeah. That's an old one, right?
Yeah. But the guy, Tim Heidecker, has a podcast called Office Hours. And it's a comedy podcast, but when they start, it's like the big fanfare, like they all like scream good morning, and there's like they've got sound effects and all the stuff. So it's like a high energy start to the stream. Maybe we need sound effects.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, then we have to follow it up with like Dex product updates. True. I guess that could be high energy if we want it to be.
Yeah, we could make it high energy. We could need some like memes and stuff that we could overlay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's making rain memes?
Well, Harry from Oasis made a bunch.
Yeah, they were great. We gotta keep them going. Who's running the meme factory?
And Toby's King of the Pepe meme.
Sticker pack.
Yeah, you've got an arsenal.
Yeah.
An arsenal of Pepes in the bank.
You've got to be used.
What?
They've got to be used. It's perfect for every scenario.
Yeah, there really should be some sort of that would be great functionality for this this streaming product to be able to do
just
memes over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what were we talking about before? I tried to go live before and I thought I hit the button, but it turns out I didn't. And so we had like a few minutes of chat before we realized we weren't actually live. Did we say anything of importance? I think we just said that we're going to try to structure the format of the streams a little more. And so we're going to start each one with a product update, but we're going to try to put the product update in context. And then we're going to have a guest every week. And the guest this week is Toby. And Toby, I thought, was like a finance, had a PhD in mathematics and finance, but apparently you just Google it.
Yeah. I did a lot of maths and advanced statistics, and at uni I specialized in more advanced statistics and time series stuff. But you can go on Twitter nowadays and just follow experts and get even more up-to-date knowledge. So yeah, scrolling through Twitter and digesting that stuff is what I do.
That's cool. I think it would be good. It would be good. Maybe at the end of this stream, we could talk about like the data stuff that you've been looking into.
Yes. Yeah. The requirement for a lot of trading strategies is data. And the more advanced they get, usually the more data they get, and it's costly on blockchain. So trying to find a number of solutions for working with that.
Yeah, I think we can have an interesting conversation at the end about that. But let's start with the product update. So Dave has been introducing tasks to the order book.
I can talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, it's a new version of the order book because the contracts had to change. So if you're on an older version of the order book, you won't see it, but the app will basically be getting rolling updates to take more advantage of the new functionality. But it's called tasks. And basically what it is when you, there's like the four main actions for the contract. You've got depositing, you've got withdrawing, you've got adding order and removing order, like pretty simple stuff. So whenever that happens, you can queue up a list of tasks that will run after the main action. So it's useful, say for example, if you want to add an order and the order has some kind of state that it might be like initializing to. So for example, say you want to deploy some order and then when it first starts, it's going to do an auction somehow based on the price on some Uniswap pool of some tokens in that moment. So the old way is you would sort of have to do that manually, and that's not great for multiple reasons. The most obvious being that you might just make a mistake when you're doing it manually. Like you test it and then you actually go live, there'll be a difference between when you test it and when you go live and you forget to do the update, and that's just painful, and you have to do a lot of manual work, and also it makes things less reusable because you can't, if you have to do the manual update every single time. So you might have this really nice reusable strategy, but then every time you actually want to go live with it, you're looking for manual things. You're going to have to go back and like manually plug in before you deploy it. And the other issue is that even if you do it right manually, there's a gap between when you submit a transaction and when it's actually going to get mined into a block. Things could move. So even if you did everything manually perfectly, there's still room for error before it actually goes on chain. So with the tasks, you can actually make everything completely reusable and safe. So you can write a task that goes with the action that you're taking. So if you're adding an order and you want to initialize it, you could write the task which is going to calculate whatever it is, the auction time start or price or something, in the moment that it gets added, and it'll run once. So the task runs once, but then obviously the order just sits there forever like a normal order. So it's using that initialized information from the task. So then it's all in line and it's reusable, because you could take that same order template for the strategy and then deploy it again in like a month for a different auction or whatever it was, and it'll just reinitialize itself according to whatever the new state of things are when you do the deployment the next time. So you can do it as many different times as you want, or as many different tokens, whatever you want, networks. No need to manually do things. So the tasks sort of automate these processes that you would normally have to do manually. And that's sort of the immediate value to it, which is good. But in terms of like more of a long-term vision, it also allows for building products on top of this, because you can actually have a contract own orders as well, and the contract can define tasks. So a really simple example would be you could have a task which errors on withdraw for say 6 months, and then you can create like a vesting schedule where like no one can you could have a bunch of people put some money in to some strategy, it can run, and then there's no way that people can withdraw their funds because you've got a task on the withdraw. So it should allow for, we need to build like a factory or something for that, but it should basically open up that, which is that people can write expressions to create products to control shared pooled funds, or maybe there's like multi-party things, like maybe like insurance policies, like that kind of thing, like based on prediction markets and stuff. Prediction markets pretty crazy right now. So maybe you could get some on-chain data from some prediction markets and build like another layer on top or whatever. I don't know. So yeah, that's kind of like the summary of what we're doing with V4. Should be more flexible generally and automated.
I was saying before to Toby, like how, like because you said it's the stuff that you currently have to do manually, but it's also opens up stuff that is impossible, right? Like being able to modify the state of your order outside of a take order. So usually, like you can.
Oh yeah, it does.
You can usually only modify the state of your order when the order is traded, but tasks will allow you to like update the state of it anytime. And I was saying, like, if you had a strat that had some awareness of the amount that had been traded, and then you wanted to adjust that when you made a withdrawal from the vault, for example, you could put a task on withdraw so that you updated the strat's internal accounting of like what the balances are.
Yeah, which is actually pretty important. And also you can just run tasks whenever you want. They don't actually need to be attached to those 4 things I listed. You can also just run a task whenever you want.
Yeah.
So
because my understanding was we couldn't really do a proper portfolio rebalancing strategy before, because you couldn't you wouldn't be able to touch the vault, or you throw the accounting out of whack. But with tasks you can. Is that right?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And that impacts like a lot of different strategies, not just rebalancing actually. Like basically if you have any strategy which is doing some kind of calculation based on vault balances or deposits or withdrawals, then you need to do some kind of record keeping whenever you do a deposit or a withdrawal to like rescale all the internal values. Yeah. So that's really important. So, and that would be crucial if you're building a product. Like if you were building a rebalancing product, then that deposit and withdrawal would have to be exposed to anyone using that product. And so it would have to do, like you can't make a product that doesn't let people deposit and withdraw to their folio.
Yeah, you're talking about the wrappers now.
Yeah, I'm saying like it will be even more important to the wrappers because it's not like you can just easily just like pull everything down and put it up again. Like the wrappers would have to define like a whole on Rails product that works properly, like start to end. So it would have to have all of those calculations in them.
Yeah, so we're thinking like we've called them like governance wrappers before. So it's like basically having it's like literally having a wrapper around an order or a set of orders, and then being able to program extra stuff around who can do what when, which is why we call it governance.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could do like pooled orders, for example, where many people pool their funds into a single order, and then can share the profits or whatever after some fixed period.
Yeah, totally. Do you want to talk a bit about the GUI like things that you were looking at doing? Because I think that would tie into the productizing of stuff. Because I guess the thing that people run into pretty consistently, and we get pretty consistent feedback on, is wanting a more streamlined GUIs into things, whether it's like swaps or DCAs or whatever, and like how.
Oh, right. No, I think I'll talk about that next week when we've actually got a demo.
Save that for a demo? Yeah, okay. All right, that's fair. A demo would be really
good.
But
I can say that, I mean, in terms of what we're talking about now, in terms of the app, there's no, once you get this PR merged, you will be able to add order tasks. So it's just an extra source in the order. So you've got like calculate IO, handle IO, and post add order task. And that will just run when you add the order. I haven't really thought about how you would define deposit and withdraw tasks at the moment, because maybe it could go like, obviously you could write them when you go to deposit, but really you still want them as definition of the order. But that full definition of the order is the .rain is lost when you add the order, because only the rain line goes on chain. So we'd have to somehow put the .rain for your tasks, your deposit and withdraw tasks. We'd have to put that somewhere so that it can be retrieved later when you go to do a deposit or withdraw, and then it could prompt you to say that you had one written for this order.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the same old thing, right? It's like the contracts do all of this stuff and there's a whole language and it's so flexible, but then you have to actually somehow make an interface that's going to work for people.
Yeah, well, we have the constant challenge when we're creating stuff is we don't use a whole bunch of the things that people usually use, like databases and logins. So we're always looking for we're sort of reinventing how to build apps as we're reinventing how to do dexes and how to do languages and everything else. It's like we make life pretty difficult for ourselves.
We're discovering it. But this is the whole point of being in Web3, isn't it? Like, I mean, we've done plenty of Web2. We know how that goes. What's the point of being in Web3 if you're not trying to actually figure out what that means?
That's true. Anyway, is there any other updates that we've been doing?
Just probably a minor one from a user's perspective, even though it's a reasonable, seeming to be a reasonable bit of work, is just there's going to be new words for the order book that we'll try to get into the new one for just like context around all this stuff. So the new subparser will come with the new tasks as well. So you can sort of access all the information about things that are happening and respond to them, which is maybe like assumed, but yeah, there'll be new words for all of that. So when you're actually writing these expressions for a task, like for example, like just simple example, like when you do a deposit, like the deposit amount is going to be available as new words in the subparser for the deposit tasks. So they will be, there's no like safety on that at the moment. In the future, I think we could put some safety rails around that. So what I mean is like, if you use deposit amount and then you use that word in not depositing, it's probably going to do the wrong thing, right? So you do have to just like be sensible and make sure that you're using the right words for the right task. But yeah, that's basically it.
I mean, the other big thing you'll be working on is the math library. That's pretty massive.
Oh yeah, maybe but like that's not ready yet. That's gonna be.
Maybe
like
we should wait until maybe we should wait until it's actually available. And the other thing that we did a bit of work on was quoting.
Mm-hmm.
So that hasn't surfaced to the app yet, but you'll actually be able to go to any order and like evaluate it and see what it is right now, which is going to help you, for example, Toby, because right now you put up a strat and it's a black box and you literally have no idea what's going on, but you'll be able to go to the order, hit quote, and be able to see the price and amount that it evaluates to right now. And also should be able to see the whole stack. So you'll be able to like actually dig into the strat and debug it if you're wondering why it's like not doing what you expect it to be doing.
Nice. Are you also getting
cool.
discussed it on chat on the debug side with the left-hand side items? It's currently in like numerical form.
Yeah. Dave and I have talked at length about that. Yeah, I basically have a plan for it. Dave just needs to do it. He needs to find the time.
Yeah, we'll get you negative numbers first because I know you want that. You know that's a higher priority, and then we can look at that. Because the information is there actually in the parser. It just doesn't really. There's nowhere. It's sort of disconnected. So like when it's parsing it, it's obviously knowing all the names of the left-hand items. So the parser knows the names and the indexes of them, but then it doesn't really like make a record of them and expose it in a way that the app can then go backwards and then display it when it does the debug stuff. So it seems definitely doable. It's just like everything else. We just need to decide where it sits in terms of what needs to be done first. Yeah, that would be a big update. That would be great.
Okay, cool. I think that's everything from the updates perspective. Should we talk strategies?
Yeah.
So Toby was going to give us a tour of the tranche strat.
Yeah.
From the perspective of projects using it. Yeah.
So this is a strategy that David initially wrote. Do you want to give like a little introduction on where it is now and currently, and then because this is like a version 3 or something or 4, or however we break down these things coming in, but it's an improvement upon a strategy that you already, supposedly an improvement on something that you've already created.
So you want me to give like just an intro on it?
Yeah, because you were the initial creator of that, and then I can just go into
I mean, it wasn't just invented in a bubble. It was actually something that somebody asked for a project as well. So it was, it's definitely been an iterative process over multiple projects, multiple tokens, multiple attempts, just sort of like streamlining it and also making it a bit more. Yeah, so it's called the grid strategy here rather than tranche. But it's basically, it might not be that clear just looking at charts like that without an explanation. I'm
expecting you to explain it.
Yeah, you're just pulling that up, but that doesn't really mean anything. So basically, you the thing that you want to do is you've got some token and then you want to have a bit of a schedule for buying it or selling it or both. So you could just do a dollar cost average, right? Where you just say like, okay, I'm just gonna like go and hit Uniswap or some external source, and I'm gonna read some price, and then I'm just gonna like take the price, and then I'm just gonna sell that many tokens every certain amount of time and get like a budget. But it doesn't really give you a lot of control over the process or any sort of feeling that you might be trying to get a better price, or like it might be like accessible to like when you have like a pump or something, you might want to like prioritize that or whatever. So what this actually does is sets up a predefined set of points that you would like to sell. So it's kind of like a combination between a normal grid strategy where you just put up an order and then an order and then an order and then an order at like different price points and then wait for them all to clear. And it's kind of a combination of that with a dollar cost averaging strategy. So like as the orders get cleared, it'll actually slowly recharge the orders. So it'll like it'll fill them in from the top. So it'll like bring them back. So you've got an ongoing budget for filling up the order as it gets cleared. And you've also got specific price points that you're actually targeting. So you're not just saying like, I'm going to take any price. You're saying, no, I want some control. I'm going to set a price at like $2, $2.50, $3, $3.50, like a linear thing maybe, right? So you're just going to say like, I'm only going to sell when it actually hits those points. And then if it comes back down again, I'm not going to go chasing. I'm actually going to wait because it might come back up again. And if it doesn't, if it stays down for a protracted period of time, you're going to let that recharge slowly bring the price back down until it intersects where the market is. So it's, yeah, I mean, does that make sense too? Like, is that reasonable to explain what you were going to pick
I'll
up
share
on?
my screen if I just,
Yeah.
because I've made some snazzy diagrams.
Nice. Because you've been doing, you've been making sure that it's both a buy and a sell at the same time with like a spread, right? So then you actually know if the trades are clearing, what's actually happening is the price is doing this, like crabbing along, right? So you're actually gonna make a profit.
Yeah, attempting to turn it more into a strategy that could be used for market making. That will manage its inventory, manage volatility, and yeah, attempt to make some money. Can you guys see that okay?
Oh, good, you've got some diagrams. Yeah.
Yeah, some snazzy diagrams.
Sorry. Yeah.
Maybe we should put these diagrams on that document page,
we definitely should.
page that Josh has had over, because this seems like a better explainer than what was on the screen 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to visualize it always through like, this is essentially an order book is what the tranche strategy is. How I do it is different orders in an order book. So, you know, you got the sell orders here in red and the buy in green and the price in yellow being the midpoint. And you're essentially just setting levels of which that you want to sell, being liquidity in the order book essentially. And what we want to try to do is create a strategy that will move with price, adjust, manage inventory, and try to create some money. So standard market making strategies is simply try and make money around a spread. So the difference between that they're buying and selling at, the wider this spread is, the more money they make. But the worst trading execution can be for the traders that are trading in there. And then one of the other things about it is then you obviously have inventory as well. So AMMs you hear about impermanent loss all the time. So if you have 2 pots of tokens in an AMM and price is increasing and you're essentially selling a lot of one token, you are selling the token that is going up in value. So you're losing inventory in something that's going up. So trying to create things around that can manage that risk and try to reduce it. But to take a step back, I think the first thing that we want to change around tranche strategy is currently the midpoint is fixed. So, you know, fixed midpoint needs the orders I want to sell at, and those will recharge. the first thing that I think would be good to propose is a movement of the midpoint. So this is a strategy that's not using any oracles or external price data to determine where it should be trading. It's using all of its own internal data and how liquidity moves through its own strategies to try and adjust. So we need to try create rules without going, this is what the price is. We need to try create it around what the tranches are. So firstly, we set it up. There's a midpoint of 100. Price trades through here. It eats the tranche at 101, goes back down, eats 99, eats 102, and eats 103. As you can see here, 3 tranches have been taken on the upside and 1 on the downside. So to rebalance the midpoint, we can take the difference between the last tranches, or first tranche there and the last tranche there, and create a new midpoint, which will then recalibrate it around 101 to start the whole process again. We've also talked about double tranches. So having a more of a concentrated liquidity, which can trade to offer users good price execution, so they can always get a price right now, but then having wider tranches for price discovery. So you don't want to pile all of your liquidity all the way close to the top ends of the order book, because your users won't really be able to trade through it, and it will be quite a static market. Being able to provide enough liquidity so that most users can trade, and when there's an influx of a large amount of liquidity, it will move and adjust, get some price discovery, and then hit these wider tranches, which are shown here. I've had a couple questions that I've just written up that I think would be good to discuss, which is, when creating this, the midpoint for this concentrated liquidity is here. Firstly, should the midpoint for these wider tranches also be the same as these ones here? Because you can imagine if price goes up, it hits a new high. How fast do you want to move liquidity around this? Do you want price to go back down? Do you want to sell into this increase in price? So yeah, a couple questions around there. So how often are we rebalancing the wide one versus the small ones? Is it a little bit slower? So yeah, I was just wondering what you guys think on that.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would say like we could try a few different things, and just because it's not, there's probably some like clearly wrong things that we could do, but there's probably also like a few things that we could do that would have like pros and cons, is probably what will end up happening. And like figuring out which market conditions they work better in is probably the goal, rather than saying like this is definitely the best strategy.
Yeah.
Because the first thing that comes to my mind is like whether you would have them share state at all, like whether you would treat them as completely independent strategies, and you just have sort of the big wide one that sits there, and then the tighter one, and then they're sort of like a fractal, if you know what I mean. Like they have the same behavior, but one's just on a bigger scale than the other one.
So
or if they're like actually sharing the same state, so as trades are completing on the tight thing, it's actually changing the behavior of the big one because they actually share the storage.
Yeah.
Right. Like you could go either way.
On that point, I think there's a scenario where, let's say, it beats the concentrated one, it then goes up to the wide one, and that's effectively a jump of price movement. If this to rebalance and not be aware of the other strat, it may rebalance with a midpoint around here, and all of its sell side would effectively just be arbitrage straight away. So I don't know if would you want to rebalance yourself around, because it's effectively jumped, yeah, maybe like 5%, hitting this wide. Do you want to?
When you say it's going to be arbitraged away, I mean that yellow line is supposed to be like the external market rate, right?
Yeah.
So anytime it intersects with the red line, it'll be an arbitrage opportunity, whether or not it's the small or the big strat. So
yeah, I think like
do you mean when those green ones intersect with the other red ones? Is that what you mean? Yeah, you can't. Okay, that's probably a good point. Is like anyone who wants to try this out, like you can never have an overlap. That's right. Because if you have an overlap in the sells and the buys, then what'll actually happen is your strat will trade against itself, and it will just use up all of its money trading against itself, and you won't get anything. You'll make a loss. So yeah, you can't have them intersect. You're right. Okay.
So the buy and the sell, yes. So from reducing that, both of them being aware of each other's state would be good. But just from the sell side as well, let's say if price is up here, and we agree to sell here, this difference will be taken by solvers.
Right, but the yellow line had to get to that point. Are you saying that the red lines would be positioned underneath the yellow line somehow?
I'm saying
trades going through, because the trades would execute on the way up, right? Like so, when that yellow line is pumping there, it would go through all of those red lines, wouldn't it? So they would already be cleared out, actually, wouldn't they?
Yeah. So I was thinking also there's a stopped tranches as well. So you can be like, so the tranches stop here, because in another version of tranche, they'd keep being tranches.
Yeah, it just goes forever.
In that case, it would. Which is
basically for exactly that reason, is that like there's always another tranche, so that you never end up in a situation where the market's gone way past your tranches because it had to actually get through the tranches on the way there.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Because then, if this did readjust, it's gone through white space essentially, and you have price above where you're setting sell tranches. You're basically selling below market value, is what would be if you came in and did that there.
Yeah. Did you look at the shy liquidity at all? Because that's basically the reason we have the shy liquidity is for exactly this. And this is the same issue that AMMs have, actually. This is one of the big issues with AMMs, which is that when you have a price on an AMM, that price is literally calculated from the inventory, right? So one thing is you need a lot of capital in the AMM to have like a small amount of slippage, because the slippage is relative to like the amount that's in there. So if you do that and you pile a whole bunch of capital in there so that you've got like nice tight spread so that traders can trade and everybody's happy, when you do get a price movement, because each trade is a small amount of slippage, you've got like, it has to go through all of the intermediate prices to get to wherever the new price point is, with all of that capital on the curve, right?
Yeah.
So the shy liquidity is basically when it goes through a tranche, we can actually jump a certain amount into the next tranche. So we can say when you clear the amount of capital that was available at a certain price point, when you go to the next price point, you don't have the same amount of capital that you had at the previous tranche when it was full. You maybe only got like 10%, right?
Yeah.
So because it recharges, it can recharge from 10% all the way up to 100% over whatever period of time you can figure the strat to. But if you're worried about price discovery, like eating through lots of your money on the way up, right?
Yeah.
You can make it really shy. So you could basically say, I'm pretty much just going to give just enough tokens on each tranche level for it to be worthwhile for a bot to take a bounty, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
So on a low fee network, that could be literally like a few dollars. So you could say, when we go to the next tranche, that tranche actually only starts with like $5 in it. So if the
does that only work the first time?
What do you mean the first time?
Like the first time it goes up through the grids?
It just takes effect in the moment that it transitions from one tranche to the next. It's like a really simple jump. So the idea is that if you had like quite a few tranches like close together, and then the market did like a really big jump, a really big dump like it did the other night, it's going to dump through like a whole bunch of tranches really quickly, and you don't want it to go like a whole tranche. A grid
can only fully recharge on the way down if that same grid, like a grid will only get fully recharged if you stay at that grid point or below it.
Yes, because it recharges from like top to bottom or bottom to top, depending on.
Yeah. So let's just talk about the sell side. So
it's easier just to think about it one way and then imagine everything works the same in reverse.
Yeah. So it's like if those red lines are fully charged, it means that they start off much smaller. So there's only a small amount of liquidity in each grid. There's small orders, and then as you go up, and then every time you enter a new one. But then if you stayed there at that grid, then it will keep recharging fully to its full size. And then the next one will go full size, and the next one will go full size. So eventually the price will go down. But then when you go back up again, it's as if they're small again, right?
The first one that you intersect will have recharged however much it recharged, and then they'll go back to being small again. Yeah. Because in that first one, we don't know. Sorry.
Isn't that what you're trying to achieve with the wide ones anyway? Or is it like it seems like adjacent?
Oh. Yeah, this is one of the things I got David to explain tranche first, because I haven't worked deep within it yet. So it's still exactly how it works, I don't know.
This is like a setting that you have to. It's in there. It's like an extra setting that you toggle on, and then you can start like.
You should read the
skipping tranches.
Also, you should read that doc page that I put up before, because that goes pretty in depth into all the settings. Like I've tried to write an explanation of every setting. Yeah, and it explains shy liquidity.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it's easy to think about shy liquidity. Well, honestly, it's easy to think about everything in terms of like the problems you're trying to solve, rather than just like, here's a feature, right? So the problem the shy liquidity is trying to solve is you have a big price shock in either direction, and you don't want to like use all of the capital that's sitting on these tranches to burn through all these tokens when you know the price, like a human looking at it could be like, well, the price is here, right? But the computer doesn't know that. So it needs like a way to get there. And AMMs typically will just burn all the way through according to the algorithm. But we could say like, we're just going to give like $5 at this tranche, $5 at this tranche, until we like stabilize a little bit. And then once we find some kind of equilibrium, then we could like recharge that all the way up to like a $500 tranche. And then it sort of reaches stability again.
How do you do stop tranche? Like how do you cap at it? Like what Toby was saying before, if the price goes, you've got 4 grids like that, and the price goes way above. As your 4th grid recharges, you will keep offering a way worse price than the market, even if the market's really high. Like, how do you say, I don't want to offer? Yeah, how do you say I don't want to offer anything anymore because it's now well beyond. I don't want to recharge until it's closer to where.
Well, that's what I said. That's when it came up in chat the other day. I was like, I think that's what's going to happen. Is like, unless you just cap it and finish, then it's going to be really difficult to know exactly that. Like,
when you say finish, you mean don't recharge? You mean clear out the grids
once you go past the cap, just kill the strat. Like, it just doesn't run anymore. Like, once it's done, and just treat it as a disposable strat. Because if you don't do that, and you want it to like somehow have a recharge thing, then you need.
Oh, is this Toby? Is this what the wide ones are for?
So the rebalancing of the middle, if I'm picking up what you guys are saying, would alleviate this. So you're saying price goes up, and we don't want to recharge tranches below price. Is that what you're saying? If I were to draw it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're saying the grid, there's like a moving average. The midpoint is like a moving average of.
It's effectively price.
Moving average of the price as captured and you know what that is because of the grids you've gone through.
Yeah.
And so there always is, if it's going up, there's always a grid point above because the grids have literally moved.
Yeah. So if you watch price here, you know, it's going across, goes up, the whole tranche moves up, goes up again, whole tranche moves up, and it adjusts. So you're not going to be having sells ever below where price is, and they're not going to be recharging below price, and the buys are also going to be moving up with it as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So however you recalculate that midpoint moving, which I think is a whole conversation.
So way that I've got it here is it's eaten through. So let's say price is moving within a certain time frame that we allow these tranches to exist before it recalculates the midpoint. We go, it's eaten through that one, eaten through that one, eaten through that one, and one there. So it's gone through 3 sell side and 1 buy side. So that's 99 and that's 103. What's the in between of 99 and 103? Which is 101. So it then rebalances around 101, fresh tranches, and it's effectively moved its midpoint.
Yeah, so you're basically, just to restate it, maybe, is you're tracking how much has actually been sold on either on the sells and the buys, and then you're using that to derive some kind of like average that becomes the new midpoint always. Yeah. So the more you're trading, it's feeding back into this like rolling average calculation that's always like recentering itself according to how many trades, or not how many trades, the actual volume weighted average of the trades, right? Because it's like how much you sold at each price point is the thing that's going to rebalance it.
Yeah, and then depending on what markets we do it for, if it's possible to do it by time, or if it's possible to do how many trades happened on the market. There's more liquid tokens, maybe better to do via trades versus time.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, volume average rather than time average.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be...
I mean, that would work. So I was saying, like, just actually separate to that though, like coming back to the other diagram down here. If the small one and the big one are linked anyway, as in they're trying to share the same midpoint and they're all moving up and down together, then you potentially could just model that as a different amount curve on a single strategy, right?
Yeah.
Like you could say, like we have an exponential one actually, which we've used before. So you could actually say like the tranches get exponentially larger the further away you get from the midpoint. But you could do another, you could do something like a stepwise function. You could say we have a whole bunch of really tight tranches that are relatively small around the midpoint. So we have like 10 tight tranches and they work like this. And then after tranche 10, it works like this. And it actually just like kicks.
What's the advantage of having? What actually is the advantage of having spread out tranches? Because as far as I can see, you just have more inefficiency because the price, you're offering more tokens at a fixed price. So eventually, when the order goes, when the trade goes through, there's more tokens that were further from the price, including slippage.
I think it's a balance.
Whereas if the tranches are tight.
I think it's a balance between user execution and how well that goes, and the risk of adventuring the market making strategy and market makers profit. So when projects usually go with market makers and they sign a contract, in the contract it say we will try upkeep this amount of spread, because market makers make more money the higher the spread is, and less when it's smaller, and there's more risk when it's smaller as well. So you may want to move where you're keeping your liquidity.
Couldn't you do that with? Yeah, but couldn't you do that with? Aren't we talking then about an adjustment of the liquidity available at each point? Because tighter price tranches, I don't really see how that's ever not a good thing, because it's more efficient.
It is more efficient, but let's say there's volatility in the market, and
then just make the liquidity more shy.
Yeah, it's a combination of both, between how much liquidity you have on those tranches, which the shyness is affecting, and then also the space between those tranches as well. Effectively can manage that risk in the same way. Combination of both can help a little bit more. So in a high volatility,
doesn't it manage it? But again, doesn't it manage it? It doesn't do the opposite of what you want.
So what do we want to happen?
I think
Because,
the issue that Josh is pointing out. Do you want to just explain the problem, Josh? Like how when the
I don't know. Maybe I can explain it better. So like if you have like a tranche at 100 and 150, let's take an extreme example. Then as soon as you get over at 110, when the price is at 110, your strat's still selling at 100. When it gets to 130, your strat's selling at 100. When it gets to 149, your strat's still selling at 100. So you're offering a less efficient thing. But if you have tranches at every dollar, when the price gets to 130, you're offering at 130. When the price gets to 131, you're offering at 131. And I'm saying if you want to say outside of these ranges, we want to have less available at those prices, you could do that by adjusting the shyness or just the overall liquidity of those tranches, so that if you do get a volatile thing, you're not going to suddenly sell a whole bunch of a spread that's far away from wherever your moving average is. You're not going to like sell loads out there, but you would still want I still can't see why you would want wide tranches, because that makes it even worse, because then you get worse deals when it's more volatile instead of, if anything, don't you want the reverse? You want
slippage, right? It's basically slippage. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I would think you want the opposite. As in high volatility moments, you want tighter pricing and less liquidity at those tighter bands.
Not tighter spread. You're not saying a tighter spread. You're saying tighter tranche distancing between.
Yeah, because the spread is because
the
spread is the average.
High volatility, but you still want the tranches to be not too far apart relative to each other on the same side.
Yeah, because it's stepwise.
So if this was like a typical AMM, like your stereotypical constant product curve, it would basically be like you have infinite tranches, but the slippage isn't calculated from there being discrete orders and discrete amounts available at each price point. It comes from the trader says, this is how much I want. And then the AMM says, oh, well, if that's how much you want, then this is how much slippage you're going to get, right? So it's always, it's not actually offering, like Uniswap is not offering a specific price for a specific thing. It's reactive, right? Whereas this is proactive in that it's actually saying like, there is this many tokens available at this price. You can take it or leave it, rather than you tell me how much you want and then I'll tell you how much I'll charge you for it, right? So
okay, so there's a thought experiment then. What would a grid strategy that we're talking like this one look like with infinite grids?
I get what you're saying, because you're saying effectively you can just have a scale with a lot more finer granularity in where liquidity is, but you can just move it along that scale a lot. So this is like stop, start, stop, it's a little bit more rigid in the space, and yours just says to make it a smooth scale and just move liquidity in terms of stacks. That's essentially what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying like it's a similar problem, which is just that whether it's this style with like firm amounts and prices preset, or whether it's like a reactive thing where it's like, well, based on what you want and based on the capital, like this is the thing or whatever, and it's like a curve or whatever, like regardless of how you do it, the same basic issue is that as an algorithm, well, as anyone, like nobody knows what the market is about to do, right? So you've got a high volatility, so the price moves a lot. So you make a profit on all of these things when there's no trend and it's just doing this, and it goes buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, and you make a profit based on the spread, like you were saying. But the price doesn't do that. Sometimes it moves in just like a trend, and then it might start crabbing at the other end. So you make more money when you make more available at a tighter spread while it's crabbing, but the more capital that you commit to repricing when it moves, you lose more, right? So you're in this like weird, like there's no right answer thing, which is like the more capital you allocate, the more you'll get wiped out if it goes somewhere else. So that's the basic idea behind the shy liquidity, is that you want to have some kind of mechanism for being like, well, if it's trending, I want to put as little capital as possible up until I feel comfortable that things have calmed down a little bit, and then I'm willing to start putting like more capital back, right? And then go back to like trying to make money off the crab. So having the tranches be far away, ignoring really high gas environments, let's just ignore like crazy gas environments for the moment, putting the trenches really far away does actually achieve that. But it makes it much worse when things are stable, like Josh was saying. Like once it actually does calm down and like hit a range, you're no longer able to actually capitalize on that range. So but the total amount of capital is what's important. Like if you move from $100 to $200 as a price, what is the total that you invested into your strategy to realize that it's now at $200? It could either be you have one tranche at 100 and one tranche at 200, and then the total amount of capital is just one jump, or you could have lots of little jumps that are like add up to the same amount in total, right?
Maybe you just want shyness to be a function of like how quickly the grids are clearing in one direction.
It could be. Yeah. I mean, shyness is actually a hot swappable source, I think. So we could make a way more. That would be awesome. Like you could
moving up. So
do a
if you
volatility
speed up
metric.
through, if you're speeding through tranches, then it's like, okay, cool. I'm going to get shyer on the way up. I'm going to get shyer and shyer and shyer and shyer until I'm offering like 1 cent at every tranche, every grid.
Yeah. I mean, this is like ages ago, Josh, you and I were talking about, and Toby actually, we were all talking about like whether there would be a way like to measure on-chain volatility in real time. And I put like a bit of a sketch on like how we could do like a really rough thing without having piles and piles of data, which we know is going to be expensive on chain, having like a relatively small amount of data. And what you really want to do is like approximate the standard deviation, right? To get like a volatility measurement. So we could be sampling prices and like histogramming them and binning them and approximating a standard deviation, and then using that to feed into the shyness and the tightness, actually. Like all of these things that we're debating, it all just comes back to like how volatile is the market and whether it's trending. So you could say, how volatile is it? Does it seem like it has a strong trend? And the higher both of those two things are, you should probably actually make the tranches shyer and further apart and make the spread bigger. Really, like you could come up with like a combined danger score, right?
So I've got that. It's sort of down here. Have like a volatility counter, if we can have some way of measuring it, but then also have an inventory counter as well, and run that sides, because you have inventory risk as well. So if one side is really heavy, you want to be circling that into the other. So you want to move that liquidity up and get rid of some. So having both of those combine into some sort of score can do space, but then also got down here as well the dispersion more so, which is I think a little bit different from how we've discussed it, but it was like a standard state. You're pretty happy offering cash here, and just through it crabbing along, you're making more money on these wider spreads because that's where you've got more of your cash, and essentially is funneling it to stay bouncing around here. But then let's say you got to a state where you're very heavy in this side of the inventory, you want to be putting liquidity higher up so you can manage your inventory risk. Yeah.
I mean, you can do all of this just by swapping out the amount curve for something that looks like these, because the tranche sizes scale according to that curve for the amount.
Yeah.
And so do the recharge rates, actually, because the recharge rates are time. So if it's going to recharge one tranche in a day, in absolute terms, that is a faster recharge on a bigger tranche, right?
Yeah. And I think going back to Josh's point about why you don't have more tranches, because you could do just sort of smooth it out and it'd be a curve, and in there would be like thousands of tranches essentially. Is that what you were saying, Josh?
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of having space, the space is irrelevant between it. Well, I don't know if it is or is not relevant, but yeah, it would just become more smoothed instead of stop-starty.
Yeah, but the issue is that you're actually, if it's in the middle, it's not just about it. It's not stop-starty. That's the thing. It doesn't stop. It keeps offering the price at the lower rate. That's the issue, Josh.
Oh, okay. So for example,
it doesn't stop. It just recharges at the lower price. So if let's say
price is
like 3,000 on Uniswap, and you've set your tranche at 2,500. You're still selling ETH at 2,500, recharging it, even though ETH is 3,000 on Uni. If your next tranche is not till 3,500, it doesn't stop and start. It keeps going at the worst price.
Okay, so going back to this, what I think would be good then is if, let's say it's eaten, because we never want to be offering sells below what the price is, as you just said, in an environment like that. If it's eaten a tranche, maybe the tranche shouldn't come live again until it rebalances around the midpoint.
You can't wait. I mean, you can't actually get to the next tranche until the first one fully clears.
Yeah, so this clears here.
Yeah, so that one's done. Yeah.
Price goes up and then it clears this one, but this one here isn't gonna recharge in there when price.
No, it doesn't. No, they don't. That's not
They go top down.
The issue is the issue is not multiple tranches. The issue is when the space between two adjacent tranches is large. So, I was just giving an extreme example, which is like, say you had one tranche at 2,500 for ETH, and then your next tranche was 3,500 for ETH. When ETH is at $3,000, you're still selling it for 2,500.
Oh yeah.
I think the fact that if you clear up through the tranches and then the midpoint moves up, you've only moved the top one higher that you just cleared. So I think it works out. I don't think you need to delay the recharge because you've moved.
Yeah.
I think that's happening naturally because you've cleared in the direction that you're moving anyway.
Yeah. No, I get your point now. So it needs to have more to understand that it's not going to come in so low, and it has a more accurate representation of where the price is right now to better offer sell orders that aren't massively below what the price is.
Yeah, because when you're market making and you're not market taking, the only way that you know what the price is of anything is because you just traded it, right?
Yeah.
Like you use your own money in trades, and so your view on the world is only as precise as the prices that you're offering. If that makes sense. It's kind of like a radar.
Can you
You're like
can you share me
sending out
that?
like
Can you
a
share me
field
that
and
mirror,
come back.
Toby?
Yeah. I'll send it to you.
I think I can show you what.
But then this is also harder in this environment because on Web 2, they'd also be able to understand what the last trade was, effectively the current price. And what we're doing is we're just doing it, like you said, around what we've traded.
You
But
can
that's
do
fine if
the last trade on what you've traded. What do you mean?
Oh, yeah, you can if you wanted to put a twap in. But trying to create a strategy, it doesn't rely on any external data but itself. I just flicked it to you on Telegram.
I have to ask you for edit rights so I can do stuff.
Yeah, so basically I mean, like, again, I think it's easier to talk about like problems that you want to solve rather than just like solutions. Like, why would you, like you just said, oh, we're trying not to use any external data. And like, I think that begs the question, like, why would you even want to do that? And for a well-established token like ETH and like Tether, for example, you probably could go to one of many different sources of on-chain information about like what the current ETH Tether price is. And then maybe you could do something like, well, if that price is 5 tranches away somehow, just an extreme example, maybe we should just skip straight to where it is and like jump to that tranche or something.
Yeah.
But so in that context, it does seem a little weird to deliberately not use on-chain information if it's available. But the context here is that if you're wanting to make a token seriously, like not even as like a big professional market maker or something, like just as like a community or something for a project where maybe they have a new token or it's just like a smaller project or like whatever it is, or it doesn't really matter, it's not ETH. You might not actually have such a like liquid and reliable on-chain source of information. And so you might actually be trying to set up strategies that people can run where they can provide liquidity for these tokens just off their own back and have a good strategy that, like, for example, if you're literally recalculating the spread and the mid price around trades as they're happening, then you can actually set a spread such that you know it's always going to be profitable. Like you can bake that kind of thing into these strategies, and then that seems like something that somebody would want to actually run for a token that might not have a lot of good on-chain information. And when I say like good on-chain information, I don't just mean like there is a uni pool. Like that pool also has to be difficult to manipulate, right? Someone can't just like put a bunch of money into it and like move the Uniswap pool and then trick your strat and then take your money and then like move it back again with like some weird economic exploit. So yeah, there is like a bit of actual context there as to why you want to be doing that.
Could I, because if the strat uses its own trades as like an oracle, is there some way that I could exploit the strat by like taking a bunch of trades in one direction and making it move its midpoint to a different place, and then once it's I've moved its midpoint up out of market, I can then arb the other side.
Well, that's why I just said you would actually only move the midpoint to somewhere where you would always be guaranteed to make a profit or at least break even if somebody was going to take the other side of it after it moves. Like you would never move it past your, if you think about it in like a really simple way, like if it was just like a regular dollar cost averaging, you would know your average cost. So you would never sell for less than your average cost. If you were buying something, you would never sell. So you could move your sells relative to your like ongoing buys, which is really cool. But you would never put them below your average price, because then somebody could like exploit it and take your money. So you'd have a similar situation here where based on all of your sells, you still have an average sell, and then you would never set your buys above your average sell, because then
I feel like
people could do that.
I feel like I had this conversation with someone who was talking about like government bonds for some country, some European country, and the government basically gives people an incentive to market make the bonds within these certain rules. And this person figured out what the rules were, and they could just do exactly that. And now I understand I didn't understand what they were telling me, but now I understand what they meant. They were like basically pushing the book up in one, like basically pushing the top of the order book in one direction, and then all the market makers had like an obligation to fill the other side, and so then they would just go back. So they would basically they would push it that one direction, and then they would eat the other side really quickly, the rest of the spread that had built up on the other direction.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why your strategy should and it is good to be using its own data, because you know your average sell or your average buy, right? So what the rest of the market is doing is good information, but it's just information. It doesn't actually like mean that you should suddenly start selling at a loss, right?
Yeah, I mean, people, to put it back in the context of the state of DeFi right now, and like what we're talking about here, like people use like ALMs now, like automated liquidity managers, to move liquidity around in a V3 pool, because you can have concentrated liquidity bands. So you don't have to do what you were saying before with the V2, where you have to put a whole bunch of disused liquidity in the pool just to make the spread better, make slippage better.
But the concentrated thing means that it's concentrated, so it only applies like within a certain range. So when the price, you're just shifting it more towards what I talked about just before with when you get a trend. Well, now the trends are going to be harsher on your capital, on that amount of capital.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that the same problems are going to apply if you're doing automated liquidity management with a V3 pool. Like people, if you have an automated way of moving liquidity around based on the pool spot, you're gonna have the same problem where people can manipulate it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we saw this with the Flipper Dipper, where I had two different versions of the Flipper Dipper, where one of them, if it hit its break-even price, it would just pause, and it would refuse to eat a loss, even if the market moved away. And then I had one that would eat a loss, and it would go chasing the market because it was trying to find the new equilibrium price, right? And we actually A/B tested those for a specific token pair in a specific market. And in that particular instance, the version that actually refused to make a loss actually ended up making way more money, which I thought was really interesting. So the difference between that and a market maker is that a market maker, I guess, is sort of maybe even contractually obligated to always be providing a trade, even if it's not in their best interest. Whereas me just running a Flipper Dipper, like I can say, well, no flipping and dipping today. We'll wait for the market to come back. But
yeah, exactly.
But that strategy was in the token that it was denominated in, was guaranteed to either make a profit or break even. It couldn't possibly make a loss because of the way that it actually tracked its own buys and sells. So whatever the external market was doing, it only cared to the degree that it could like clear trades according to its own internal profit and loss statements, right? So
if price just kept increasing though, would it readjust around that and still try to make money? Or is it just saying, if it wants to create a buy at 90, but it never goes to 90, it's just effectively going to stop trading?
Yeah, that was the two things we did. So it was the same strategy, and the only thing that was different between those two strategies is that one of them, if there was a trend, it would actually try to chase the trend and then go back to trying to play the swing trading. Basically, it's basically an automated swing trader. It's a never-ending Dutch auction, so it's constantly swing trading. So one version would accept a loss after a certain amount of time to try and find that new equilibrium point, and the other one would just pause and literally say, I can't make a profit, so I'm going to do nothing. If the market keeps moving away, then basically that paused strategy is just finished, like it's end of life, I guess.
Yeah.
But you don't make a loss. So at least not denominated in that token, you don't make a loss. So
yeah.
So then the final thing, going back to those trends, it makes money in consolidated, loses inventory in trending markets. If there was a way in which that we could spot trends with the movements of the tranches, we could then bet on the trend. So we're overlaying a strategy that profits in consolidating markets, but will lose money in trending markets. We're overlaying that with a trending strategy that will lose money in consolidating markets, but will make money in trending markets. And if they both hopefully make more than they lose, you then have smoothed returns and can manage that risk essentially.
Yeah, especially if you do things like increasing shyness when you have more trend and volatility, you could also mitigate the weak points of the strategy within the strategies individually, as well as overlaying them on top of each other. And then hopefully that would make it even more effective, right?
Yeah. Because I get what you're saying about the strategy is just going to stop trading. But in this, I think with this, you want to keep trading because you'd make more money just holding the token essentially if the token's just going to go up. I think what we want to try create is a strategy that can just consistently make money as the token moves through multiple instances, ups, downs, and that. Yeah.
I mean, you say that, but that strategy made 21% in a week, and based on the current market state, it probably would have bought back with the recent dump, and it would probably be on track for making another 20%. And that was only 2 months ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't a bad strategy. I just got impatient and I pulled it down. But if I had left it up, given the recent market movements, I probably would be quite up on that strategy right now. It was human error, not computer error in that case.
Yeah,
because you never know if there's going to be a gigantic 50% nuke tomorrow. How do you predict that?
Yeah,
it could happen.
Yeah, it was a dip buyer.
Yeah, it was ready to go. It was sitting there with 20% profit in stables, ready to eat that that token, and it would have got it this week probably.
Yeah, so in a consolidating market where, the last year zooming out has just been sort of sideways overall, and it's going to make money there. If there was a way in which that you could find, okay, now we want to start a consolidated market has started, apply it, and then or stop it when a trend happens, or have multiple of these. But then how do you set where the next one starts?
I feel like that is sort of a really good avenue of research and applied brainling is this conversation, which is actually a human does the macro evaluation, and then the strategy sort of executes it on a day-to-day basis in the stat strategy is specialized for that environment, and then you run that strategy in that environment. And then a human says, okay, we're shifting to a different environment, so let's wind down that strategy and do a different strategy for the new market that we're in, right? Just broadly being okay, now we're in a bear or a bull or whatever, because I'm not sure that you'll find like the perfect combination of strategies where like their strengths and weaknesses all just perfectly cancel out all the time. Like it probably, like, if you had some kind of insight, high level insight, and be like, well, the market is just going to go sideways for the next 6 months, and if you were right about that, you could make even more money with the right strategy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just thinking there's ways that you can sort of automate that decision process, take it away from a human, just look at it in price. And because we don't have any agreements with projects, we need to keep a certain spread. So you could just keep very wide spreads, but have some sort of way of identifying a trend. And also manage.
Yeah.
If you
But
could,
that could be done off chain, right? Like that doesn't have to be in the strategy. That could just be like that. That's when you, like you were saying right at the start of this call, like you have data issues on chain because it's expensive to have data. But if you're just making like high level decisions, you've got all the data in the world, really.
Yeah. Did the Flipper Dipper manage its inventory?
In what sense?
In terms of if it's getting heavy sided in one token, it would try to get rid of that more or increase the order size that would have on that side.
Oh no, the Flipper Dipper, the flipper part of it is that it flips. So it always sells 100% of its inventory.
Okay.
Every time it flips. Like the Flipper Dipper is trying to be honest, it's trying to be like a simple primitive that can be the simplest version of itself. And it's sort of, at the moment, it's yielding dividends more in the sense of, like I did like an auto initializing Flipper Dipper and it ran out of precision after 26 hours. And then I found like a bug in that. And now I'm like redoing the number stack so that we have like higher precision numbers. And most people never even realize that I've done that, hopefully, because they'll never run into that same bug once it's all handled, right? So it's sort of just a bit of a MacGuffin for me to try things out and then improve the product in ways that just make things more reliable for everybody in the future. But at the same time, I do think that it is absolutely a legitimate strategy that can make profit if you apply it properly. But you have to know how to apply it properly, right?
Yeah.
And these tranches, they also have. So one of the things here, when you're talking about inventory and stuff, like the big high level context for everything that you've got up on screen here is that you're thinking about like market making. You're thinking about like, how can I be providing liquidity, whatever that means. I'm not even sure that that's a well-defined concept. I'm providing liquidity, and then people are taking the liquidity, and it's because I'm doing something similar to being like an LP on Uniswap or something, but in 2024.
Yeah.
And that is a different goal with different constraints and different assumptions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if it's just like, I'm going to be swing trading forever, I need an automated swing trader.
Yeah.
Vibe.
I think we've done an hour 20.
It's been a long one, yeah.
Good
stream. Good chat.
Yeah, it'd be good to think how we can follow it up. Like maybe you could try writing some Rainlang after this, Toby, and then we could loop back to it and see like how you actually put it into practice.
Yeah.
I'd love to see you A/B test it, just like we did with the Flipper Dipper, and like run a few variants of the tranche strategy, and then we could pull it up in like a future live stream, and you could actually show us how the different ones went. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Like real data with real tokens.
Find a token out there that's just going a bit crazy, but doesn't really look like there's any market maker on there, and just apply this to it.
Yeah, do it. It'd be really interesting. Like it doesn't have to be large amounts of money that you put into it. It just has to like A/B it and like show the whole dynamics of it. And like this whole conversation we just had was very theoretical. You could do it in real life, and we could pull it up and be like, here you go, you did it. Here's one with like tight tranches with this volatility metric, and here's one with like looser tranches with like this volatility metric, and just look at them. It'd be really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Sounds good.
All right. Well, I feel like we're pretty at time.
All right. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to put this on YouTube.
Cheers.
I think we have like 3 people watching right now, but I guess more will watch the recording probably.
Nice. Yeah, it'd be good to get this live and show it working.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Toby.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.